Welcome to this episode of Step by Step, where we're going to take a deeper dive into different steps in decisions. Today's focus will be on the Add Image to PDF step. This is a great step because it allows users to take images and place them anywhere on a PDF. Whether those images are coming from a QR code from the QR codes module, or maybe a signature that someone signed that you need to place onto a form, or maybe just in general placing pictures wherever you need them to be. It's a great way to allow us to do that kind of thing. We're also going to talk about a couple of the pitfalls and common errors that people experience, the largest being how to get image placement to be placed exactly where you want it to be and not be something that's taking up the whole screen or getting cut off in the PDF and things like that. We'll also talk about the output mapping and how important it is to know what is actually getting mapped out of this step, including the file type and that kind of thing. So let's jump over decisions and now take a closer look. So here in my decisions flow, we got an example that I'm going to kind of walk through to show you exactly about this add image to PDF step. A couple things just to note out real quick. In this example, I'm going to use a QR code just to represent the image that I need to add to my PDF. This comes from our QR code module, just a step that I grabbed from that to just generate a quick QR code that I can use to send into this step. And we're also using a document viewer. This is just simply a document viewer on a form so that I can pass in information just to view it so that we can see what the PDF looks like after we add an image to it. In this case, my image input type for this document viewer is going to be file data because that's what the add image to PDF step outputs normally, but you could also have it change to a document or to a file reference if you would like to use either of those methods to save or track your data. You just simply have to convert it from file data to one of those before viewing it or before saving it if you want to use either of those types. But now let's take a look at the add image to PDF step. So the first thing that you'll notice is there's settings for this that all have to deal with the size of the image that you want to add to your PDF. So here we have a number of percentages. You can set for the percentage of the page that you want this particular image to take up. We've got the horizontal and vertical placement of where you actually want it to be placed. Do you want it to be in the top left? Do you want it to be center left? Whatever that is, you can set those and adjust those placements from left, right, center, or top, center, and bottom for the vertical. In addition to setting these here, we can also choose to actually have these values selected at runtime. So if for some reason you want this to be dynamic, maybe depending on certain cases, you need that horizontal offset or placement or the size to be different. It's going down different paths, but depending on that information, maybe you want those to come from something else or to be potentially changed depending on certain situations. You can have this to be selected at runtime. So maybe some of these you want constant, but some of them you want to pull from your data in your flow. You can have it set up that way as well. So it is a useful setting for this. In this case, so for our examples, we're just going to play around with the default setting sizes and changing things yourself. Underneath all of those, we have the option to add to different pages. So if I want to add it to all my pages, or if I want to add it to individual specific pages, we can set that up. So I'll demonstrate that once we start actually passing information through and testing this. And then we have inputs. So there's two inputs on this step. The first input is the image. So this will be the actual image itself that I'm passing into my data here. So whatever it is that I want to place onto my PDF, that's what's going here. And then the second one is the PDF document. So this is the document that I'm actually placing the image onto. So in this particular example, I'm just going to pick a constant for PDF, and I'm going to grab a PDF that I have. So I want to make sure that I'm adding a specific PDF, adding it to a specific PDF. For image, this instead of being constant is going to come from my QR code. However, you'll notice if I click on this, it doesn't actually work. I can't pick my generate QR code output because my QR code is outputting a list of bytes while this is expecting file data. So in case you have something like this, the QR codes output a list of bytes. If you use the signature pad on a form, that also outputs a list of bytes. So if you need to transfer that to file data, it's pretty easy. All you need to do is build data on something that has file data. So in this case, if I build data on my file data for my image, I have first option is contents, which is a list of bytes. That comes from my QR code step. So then I can make sure that I grab the correct information. And now it'll work successfully without having any kind of disconnect between the data types. It is required if I build data here, I do need a file name. So I can just make sure that I provide a file name for it, um, whatever that is. ID and tag are not required. I could make them if I wanted to, if I needed something for that. I'll ignore those for now because those aren't required, but I do need to make sure I have contents and file name going into the file data for this. So that is configured. Now I can look at my outputs. This naturally will output file data, just simple as that. It will output a brand new PDF that has the image placed onto the previous PDF. So it's important to note that some people may not realize it does not override the previous one. It does not anything like that. Naturally, it just outputs a brand new PDF if you leave it at rename. If you do have a previous PDF that you want it to override, you can simply just use change value and choose that previous PDF. So if you do want to override some information, you have your PDF that got generated previously in your process or got pulled from previously in your process, wherever, you can use change value to replace that with the new updated one with your new image on it. So you can use change value, but it's just important to note that naturally it will be set to rename. So it will automatically create a brand new PDF with that information on it. It does output it as file data, so just keep that in mind when you are working with this, because that is a common mistake. Some people may just assume now that this I9 paper version, the PDF that they passed in first, will just now automatically have that image on it. But it does not, because it is in this variable with the new image or the new PDF. So now I'm outputting file data. I'm just going to make sure that I pass this file data from my document result into my viewer so that I can view this information. And now let's run it. Let's see what this PDF looks like now that I've created it. So it'll make my QR code, it'll throw it on my PDF, and boom, I've got a PDF with this QR code on it. Now, because I didn't change anything in the sizes, it's taking 100% of my screen, taking up the entire PDF. You'll also notice that it is taking up page 1. It also added it to page 2, and it added it to page 3 because I did not specify that I wanted it on any specific page, so it just adds it to all the pages. So just something to keep in mind when you're thinking about it. So I got image size. Let's maybe drop that so it's not nearly as large. Let's remove all of my pages and make it only appear on page 1. And let's change my offset. If I don't change the offsets, it'll just appear in the top left. But let's maybe just slide this over a little bit so it's in a different position. And so now if I run this again, you'll see I've got my QR code. It's not nearly as big as it was before. It's much smaller. I've shifted the horizontal and verticalness of it. So now it's in a little bit of a different position. And so now I can try to get this to be exactly where I want it. In this PDF, right, I want it to take up this little square here. So I want my image to appear over here somewhere. So that's my goal now, is to try to get it to move where it belongs. Right? All that comes down to is just messing with and adjusting these image sizes. Now, if the percentages are difficult to deal with, like in this case, maybe I can't get it to be exactly the size I want, or the size might be a little bit easier, but the offsets might be difficult to get positioned exactly as I want. We have the other option of choosing image size and choosing offsets in points instead of in percentage of the screen or percentage of the space on the PDF. I can actually set these to be specific points in height and width. So if I set, maybe I want 100 and 100, and let's set some horizontal and vertical offsets to get them in here, and we'll test this and see where it places my QR code. So now I've got a pretty good size. Looks like I've got the verticality up perfectly. I just need to slide it over to the right a little bit. And so now I can just toy with those sizes a little bit, add my points, slide this over maybe another 50 points, and we'll see where it ends up. And now I've got my QR code exactly where I want it, or close enough to where I want it. So a lot of it just comes down to toying with these points and getting those positioning exactly as we want them. Um, You also notice I only have it appearing on page 1 because I selected that option as well. And so it's getting placed exactly where I want it. If I look in the debugger, is my output is its own new PDF. It'll keep the file name unless I go out of my way to change that, but it still is a brand new PDF. It is temporarily held in this PDF document result variable. So if I do want to utilize that PDF in some other way, if I need to keep track of it, if I need to save it, whatever, I need to make sure that I'm using anything after this step, whatever's going on with the rest of my flow, using this result, because then that will allow me to do anything with it. If I need to save it as a file reference, for example, then I could use that load from file data step to save it as a file reference and then save it. If I need to utilize this, maybe I need to send it in an email attachment, so then I can add this to an email, put the email attachment onto it with this file data here, and then I can go ahead and send that off. So there's a number of different ways that I can utilize this when I'm setting it up in a project. That will conclude my presentation here on the Add Image to PDF step.